Wednesday because we have a really great show today and we're excited. Yeah, so Sustainable CT does these coffee hours once a month, open to anyone. We usually pick a topic and have a conversation going, or maybe a couple people present for a few minutes, just a way of sharing ideas and staying in touch and getting feedback from you guys and sharing among yourselves. So we're always eager for topics and anything that's useful for you. I also like to have it as an opportunity for you to get to know who we are a little bit. So I'm Lynn Stoddard. I'm Executive Director of Sustainable CT, and I will just introduce my partner in crime here, Jess. You want to say hello? You can't? She's on mute.
Sure. Can I just go in 1 second?
Oh, we want to hear Deke say hello too.
We are conveniently getting a package delivered at this exact second. So hello from me, Jess LeClaire, and Deke LaRoe. He has a combined last name. He's a little black lab 3-year-old. He's pretty cool. Anyways, I'm a program manager with Sustainable CT, and it is time for me to start promoting the fellows. So starting up in June, we're going to be having fellows out at the 9 councils of governments providing direct support to your town. So keep that in mind as you're thinking of projects, or like, gosh, I just wish I had an extra set of hands. We'll have fellows who will be reaching out to you soon to set, not soon, in June, to set up meetings. I also might be trying to set up some meetings in advance if I know people are active, or if you know you are going to be active over the summer, feel free to reach out to me. And we can fill up their first week because right now they've got nothing planned. So I'd love to keep them busy and let them meet all of you as soon as they can into the start of the summer. And the packages, they're leaving. The dog came back and he's laying in his bed. So that's that, the circle of life.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. All right, so yeah, today we have Courtney Linberg and Howard Weissberg, who are going to lead a conversation on collaboration opportunities, and we're super excited about this. As you probably know, we added a new action this year on getting points if you're mentoring to a town or being mentored or doing regional work on a specific action. But I think this conversation is in an even broader context of outside of like working together in one action, but like very broad. So, hi, Margaret. So I'm going to turn over to Courtney, and thanks for doing this, Courtney and Howard. We're excited.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having us. And I will say that this is more casual than formal. So by all means, you know, this is meant to be a discussion, and with this many people, I guess we could do it through chat, or I don't know. But basically how this all came to fruition was I'm relatively new here. I think I'm in month 4 or 5 with the town of Manchester, and I have met probably half of you one-on-one through Zoom and had various conversations. And I always walk away from those meetings learning so much and having more questions. And just being new, I kept asking the questions like, is there a group that exists? Like, where do these conversations happen? And it seems like a lot of important conversations are happening about topics, but as for like the greater conversation about sustainability and getting specific leaders together and talking about regional collaboration and kind of that roll up of 169 unique towns to a statewide level, and then having something like Sustainable CT to support us, like how do we weave that all together? And it just, through conversations, Lynn presented this opportunity, and then Howard and I had just talked about this, and he's got some really innovative ideas with internships and kind of looking at it. He and I are both in public works, so we look at it through the public works lens, but I'm just so curious to know what it looks like through all of your lenses. And so we had, you know, the invitation that I sent out, I had a very brief outline, and I will share my screen and bring it up because there's about, you know, 10 or so topics that I'd like to discuss with you all. And some of them are from my mind and some are from Howard's, and then a good amount of them were just from you guys and your feedback. So this is just kind of organized chaos, I would say, with this conversation, but wanted to get us together and just start a meeting of the minds. So Howard, if you want to do an intro, I can pull up the outline and share that.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm Howard Weissberg, Director of Public Works. I know many of you. I see Chris. Hey, Chris. Kim. Yeah, so what came about is, I'm on the board of directors now for APWA, and there's so much noise on sustainability, and it's, between the Transportation Climate Initiative, between, just all of the directives, trying to figure out where we can have this live. Who's handling sustainability? It encompasses traffic, it encompasses solid waste, it encompasses, construction. There's just so many pieces to it. And we're really just trying to wrap our hands around it. Obviously, there's a looming solid waste crisis, and as Public Works, we deal with this all the time, but, it's really challenging when, every town is doing something unique and, there's really no good way to figure it out. We rely heavily on, Middletown and seeing what they're doing. But I think it would be great to try and get everybody, all the major players together, especially with these larger municipalities. We have, there's just so many different topics out there, and trying to figure out where to manage it is just a challenge. So obviously we have energy, water, transportation, open space is a big one now, is parklets and outdoor seating. And I see Jim. Hey, Jim. So there are just so many different things that we're doing. We actually went to New Haven a couple weeks ago to look at bioswales that they're doing. We looked at some of their parklets. It'd be great to have something a little bit more structured so that we can leverage the fact that there are 169 of us doing awesome things. So that's kind of my long-winded intro to the challenge that we have.
Thanks. So we can go through these, and I don't know if I'm sharing my screen, but there's the chat function too. I'm curious to know, familiarizing myself with all the other towns in Connecticut, where sustainability lives within your specific municipality, and if it is formally housed somewhere, or if it's more of just kind of bounces around and doesn't super have a home, or sometimes it's led by an outside non-governmental organization or grassroots organization. I'm curious to see, the folks on this call where sustainability lives. Can you see the chat? I can't see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll monitor the chat.
Oh, there, I can see it. Okay. Okay. So that's kind of a question too, because I think a lot of support can be provided if it isn't housed somewhere, specifically, or if it's within Public Works and tends to be buried within that silo, and it's difficult to get out of the silo and have more of a town impact, and then figuring out the internal versus the external stakeholders and kind of how to manage that. I didn't know if anybody else wants to share on that. I'm just always curious about kind of the foundation that it's built on within communities. What does the chat say? Bounces around, City Hall, Public Works Engineering, Town Hall and Public Works, a lot of Public Works.
So I'll talk. This is Catherine in the town of West Hartford. So in West Hartford, hey, how are you guys? So in West Hartford, we have 2 part-time staff. I'm in the plant and facilities department, focused on energy efficiency and renewable energy and buildings mostly. And then we have Catherine Bruns, who's in the Public Works department, who's our recycling coordinator and focused on recycling. But I think that I've ended up being a catch-all because a lot of people seem to forward me anything and everything related to sustainability, even on topics that I don't know much about. But a lot of the other things you're talking about, like water, they cross departments. And so I think that West Hartford needs to think about restructuring a little bit more, or how we tackle these kind of cross-departmental things, like transportation, which touches many different departments, and open spaces, which right now I think lies mainly with our planning and zoning department, and housing with them as well. So I think it bounces around. And when they don't know what to do with it, it kind of comes to me.
Yeah, it does seem to be like a catch-all, right? But I mean, the term sustainability is such a catch-all that I could see why that happens.
Yeah, I like Shubita's approach that she just put in the chat, and a lot of other towns and cities, although, you know, I think size has something to do with it, how you have a central kind of coordinating hub to work with different departments. And maybe Weissberg is large enough to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Shubita, would you be willing to share just a bit about how you have tackled working with a lot of the departments?
Yeah, sure. So our Office of Sustainability is basically charged with implementing projects related to our city's climate action plan. And because the plan is so broad in scope, it really covers energy, food, waste, water, landscape, and transportation. We have to work with lots of different city staff members across many different departments regularly. DPW, our development services, which is our economic development and planning group, our legal folks, our finance folks, management and budget, central grants. And then we're working with stakeholders across the community too. So nonprofits, government agencies at all levels. We really have, and resident action groups, we really have just a huge variety of stakeholders that we're working with, in addition to utilities, vendors, and others as well. So yeah, it is a huge coordinating task, I would say. My original title was Sustainability Coordinator, and I feel like that really sort of captures the spirit of the role, is there's a lot of that happening regularly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Lynn, I feel like a whole separate coffee hour could be spent on sustainability engagement methodology, because it's so fascinating for, you know, like Shubita's got it pretty dialed in, and then you've got some that are like startup. She's with the city of Hartford. So that, because I think this is going to be a much larger conversation, but just to point that out.
Yeah,
and then
totally. We can spin off into more detail on any of these things. So yeah.
So I also wanted to, you know, encourage, going on to number 2, the topics, the issues, the categories. Please keep adding to those, you know, in the chat box, because I'm curious what everyone else is measuring and interested in. I know like what my short list is and what Howard's is, and I definitely think, you know, food waste should be almost separate from solid waste because it's such a huge issue, and in tying these all together, it's great to know what everybody else talks about in their towns.
So Courtney, on to number 4, I guess, state and federal funding, financing. Obviously, Sustainable CT has a great matching program. You know, are there other opportunities out there? You know, I guess how do we provide, you know, from our perspective, Paul Dixon and I are essentially a 2-person sustainability operation in Meriden. You know, in fighting for funding, you know, we're stealing funding from, you know, operating accounts. It'd be great to understand if there's a way to fund stuff under the sustainability banner.
Yeah, and I'll invite Shubita to talk about that, but I'll just add quickly, one of the things that I'm trying to institute here and using our first big project to do it is kind of a green revolving fund, where you kind of seed one project, and then the return that you get on that, whatever the savings is, you set that aside, or a portion of it aside, so it doesn't just sink back into the general fund and you never see that. You could then, you know, earmark some of that savings to then fund other sustainability projects. So that's one way. It's slow, but I'm curious to hear. Shubita wanted to add that to the discussion, so I'm very curious to know about state and federal funding and financing.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. You know, as a city, we've been really challenged. Prior to the pandemic, we had a financial crisis that forced us to face down the prospect of bankruptcy. And so as a result, we have, you know, come through that moment in time, but do have restrictions on borrowing. So that has really limited the types of capital projects and capital improvements that we can do. So we've had to look at a variety of different financing mechanisms and funding mechanisms to make our projects move forward. So for example, we've been involved in virtual net metering, which Catherine Devaney and West Hartford have been champions at and really have guided us in our own efforts. And we've also looked at demand response programs or load shedding programs, and then different financing options like on-bill financing through the utilities too, which is definitely attractive. And I think as additional state and federal funds become available, we really want to be in a strong position to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So whether it's the Transportation Climate Initiative funding that's potentially going to come through, or federal stimulus funds, I think there are many opportunities, and I'm definitely curious to hear what the group is doing to sort of prepare or plan for those types of dollars becoming available.
I'd love to hear from anyone else if they are so inclined to share.
So, you know, again, in West Hartford, I don't know that we're doing as much as we could be doing to get ready for all the flow of funding that people are talking about is coming. And, you know, it's hard because you don't know when or what. But again, I think we're still struggling with who is taking the lead on certain topics, you know, whether it's EVs or EV infrastructure or things like that. One area that I think is in decent shape is, you know, the town does have a capital improvement building plan. Obviously, that's part of the budget. So some of those projects could be accelerated with some of the federal and state funding that might be coming. But I don't think we've put together, as far as I know, and again, I'm embedded in plant and facilities, so I don't know what kind of discussions are going on at higher levels. I don't think we've put together any special lists of climate related or energy efficiency related sustainability projects for any federal funding that's coming down. But Catherine Bruns, have you heard of anything? I know you're on here too.
No, I haven't heard of anything either, so.
I'm curious, just from reading the paper, about legislation to help make the COGS act as counties, so to speak, for federal funds. I don't know, I'm scanning, I see Pam's here from a COG. Do you have any insights on how COGS are preparing?
Hi, sorry, I had to get off mute. I'm actually down in North Carolina on vacation, so I was hoping to just listen, but now I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good stuff. No, I need to talk. I'm like, oh, and I couldn't get you on my computer, so I couldn't get visible. But yeah, so I'm not, as far as the state, there's been a lot of conversation with the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management, with getting the COGS involved and having regional recycling coordinators and having some funding come down, hopefully, from the state in some way, shape, or form to help us with that. And you know, I know that some of you have been on the calls on some of those meetings, those working group meetings. And I think that has to do with, if we get the solid waste assessment fee expanded, then maybe there'll be some funding to help out towns. And you know, our SCROG, South Central Regional Council of Governments, we're working regionally with towns on electric vehicles and on Soul Smart, just trying to get everybody ready. And also we've been working with the towns on a food waste diversion program, talking to all the towns about unit-based pricing, giving them, working with Kristen Brown closely and giving all the towns, you know, what their savings would be so that they're ready. I mean, unit-based pricing is a tough sell. So we're just trying to basically at least let them know what that would look like. And then maybe start out with food waste diversion. So we can get, if we can get a couple of co-collection sites set up, then, you know, it's all about the infrastructure, right? So if we get some co-collection sites set up for food waste diversion, if we get some composting sites set up, West Haven's going to be having a pilot program for diverting food scraps to their existing compost operation. They already have an existing compost operation there for leaves and brush, and their operators on site already. I mean, I'm using my hands as I'm talking and laughing at myself because you can't see me. And so anyhow, the operator, they already have operators on site, so they're all ready. You know what I mean? And they have rows set up and they're going to do aerated static piles. So that'll be great. And if we can get other composting sites set up in the region, and we can get co-collection location, get Wheeler Breeder and Vanta on board, we'll be able to start really diverting some of that food and reducing our waste in the state. So, yeah, that's about, I think, where we're at there. Was there another area that I missed? What are people thinking? Oh, the only funding that I'm aware of is the VW grant that's coming down. I mean, there's always assessment fee, as I mentioned, hopefully something will come out of this CCSM meetings and out of legislation this session. There's that, and then there's the VW Volkswagen EV funding that's coming soon, and there's DARA. I don't know the timing on that. I think that might have passed already. So it would be nice if they could help out the state with the solid waste assessment. Maybe they could help out with equipment or helping us get get off the ground with co-collection sites. Maybe funding the sorting at co-collection sites, or funding equipment at the composting sites, or just to get us off the ground.
Thanks, Pam.
Sure.
I see a hand, Courtney. I don't know if you're monitoring.
Oh yeah,
Chris.
I don't know how to. Go ahead. Do I lower it? I don't know.
Maybe I do. But yeah, from Middletown, a couple of years ago, we created the Sustainable Middletown Committee. It was kind of a subset of the Clean Energy Task Force, and then also other members of the community that were interested in trying to support, expanding the city's sustainability. Then in this past fall, the council established a climate emergency resolution, and based on that, the mayor has moved forward with requesting each department to put together a list of actions to try to improve each department's sustainability. So we've submitted that a couple weeks ago. Now we're looking to kind of get through the digestion process and see where we can make improvements throughout the city. I think one of the big focuses will be on EV, and we've just started to join the group out of Fairfield so that we can move forward with more municipal readiness for future EV downtown.
What's that group named?
Oh, I knew it.
Oh, you don't know.
It's I know it's Live Green. It's Daphne Dixon with Live Green. That's what we're working
Yes,
with
exactly.
as well. I meant to mention
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Live Green and municipal EV readiness.
Okay, great.
Yeah, she can provide free EV project support for during the month of April. If any town is interested, contact her. I Live Green, and just talk to them about what you want to do. And EV projects, can be simple. It doesn't have to necessarily be buying an EV. It could be just a planning and zoning ordinance, or parking, establishing a parking ticket. If you park in an EV station, things like in an EV spot, EV parking spot, and things like that, so that you're just kind of ready for when EVs do come along. But there's a whole.
Do you have a contact?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat. Let me just I'll have her.
That's great. I guess I didn't realize that if I heard that somewhere else.
Then also, probably like 4 years ago, we got a DEP grant for 6 electric cars, and then 6 double charging units. So up to this point, there's no charge as part of the grant that was provided to the community as free charging locations. And we're looking to improve that going forward.
Is that still an active grant?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay.
Quite a few years ago that we were able to get that funding. And I'll look for the resolution to post into the chat.
So Chris, I knew about your resolution and the directive from the mayor. I'm just interested, do you think that that was a critical piece, the kind of top-down direction to getting departments to collaborate together on this initiative? Would it have happened without that resolution and the direction from above?
No, I think it's very important to get the top-down buy-in that helps smooth the way or help keep everybody moving in the same direction. That they know that that's the kind of goal for the community.
And how has it been lately? I mean, I know towns have a lot of competing interests, especially lately with COVID and other issues going on. So has sustainability still been a focus for your leadership?
Yes, yeah, it continues. The mayor has been very active in with the DEP, with the CSMM program. And Kim might be able to talk more about that. But he's been, very active in trying to, in the solid waste crisis, trying to keep that moving forward. We did just recently have our food waste diversion in the downtown area. So in our sanitation district, the restaurants will now be able to have, as Courtney, as we were talking when we were out at the facility in Southington, so that we are going to be able to, start that program in May, and we're very excited about that.
Yay! Look at the little celebration thing Lynn put on there. Is Kim on the call? I saw her.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes,
That's
we're very
very
excited. Blue Earth Compost is the vendor, and the Center for Ecotechnology has joined us as well. And we're really excited about that because they can offer some great technical assistance to help us in communicating with the businesses and making sure we get it right.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example to see how you did it. And you can see every step along the way. You probably have some successes and probably some headache parts that would have been, a challenge and lessons learned. And I had added you to, like the field trips or demonstration sites or places to visit, as a potential maybe in the future as things mature. If this is something that's replicable elsewhere, we may be able to visit and see what's working, containers, routes, that kind of stuff. Because I think this is the end goal for a lot of people.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that you can go with food waste. And I think a lot of towns are looking at what they can do. Like, as you mentioned earlier, some have the leaf composting sites, and you're looking at adding food waste to that. And, we have our sanitation district. So luckily we were able to make something work with that. So I think hopefully we will see some progress with that in the next couple years.
So Courtney, I think this is kind of exactly what we're trying to figure out here. What type of forums can all of these discussions take place in? Mm-hmm. There are so many different topics, and just trying to figure out what the group would think makes sense. I know our SCROG uses BaseCamp as a communication tool, but just not quite sure what everybody thinks in terms. It would be great to have a message board. I know CT, the Yukon Center Transportation Institute, has a great listserv. But it would be great to have some sort of forum where all the sustainable discussions can take place, and we can see what the best practices are, and we can upload things on different topics. And one of the questions is really, is sustainable CT that forum? Does it make sense to do it through an organization? What's the best way to share information and to find peers that are doing the same thing or something similar, so that we're all not reinventing the wheel. And
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what everybody thinks about, how do we manage the communication on these issues?
I think it's Pam Roach. I think the state was talking about, the CCSMM was talking about having some type of monthly meetings and some type of website, their website set up for that type of thing. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I also think we need, to break it down regionally as well. But I think there was at the last meeting we were talking about that. So that might be helpful, because that's CCSMM. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they had the website now. They're posting all of the working group meetings, but it would be like a go-to place for just that. So we're not reinventing the wheel, so that we're sharing information. So, like what Kim is doing. Kim, I'm so excited. I wish I was you. I would love to be able to be doing that. Yeah. So, or, maybe not reinventing the wheel, but at least we can take, okay, this one's doing this one's doing that. We could take a couple of those ideas and put them together, if one or the other doesn't work. For instance, Kim, you have a great unique situation there. Most towns don't have that situation where, the contract is set up the way it is for you. So that's well, maybe we should all set our contracts up that way, but again, oh, and I found, if I could just let you know, I found my list of EV projects of things that have been done a lot in the state right now, like the ideas of what you can do. Okay, if you contact Daphne. So, for example, Branford is adding one EV per year to their fleet. They have committed to that, but I'm not talking about that kind of level of thing. Or transit or electric buses kind of stuff. Hold on. Zoning, like changing zoning regulations, as I mentioned, adding EV infrastructure to like new public schools project. That's what Brookfield is doing. So anything new that's being built or any construction going on, make sure that you get the infrastructure there. Parking and enforcement in Fairfield, they set up an EV charging station parking space. Somebody on another site, I remember they had 225 spaces at a new parking lot, and they're adding stations there. You've got the idea, really, I think. And multifamily unit dwellings too as well. So she can give you, you think about some projects you might want to work on and get done, and then talk to Daphne. Or you need to talk to Daphne Dixon. Yeah, I put her.
Okay, I just didn't see it. We've got the chat is going, which is great.
Courtney, we've got Margaret with her hand up.
Oh, cool.
Okay, sorry, I'm just pasting stuff from the chat into a Word doc. I was just going to speak to the question about how to have a central information sharing spot. And what I've enjoyed using occasionally is going onto the Sustainable CT website and looking at resources for towns and their different links to what different towns have done in certain projects, or at the end of an action. There are these examples of towns that have done this action. So what about if you had on the website each Sustainable CT town committee link, and we could see what they're working on. And that way in Sustainable Litchfield could go directly to that committee in that particular town. So I'm just playing around in my head about ways to have a, I guess it's a listserv idea, right? And then maybe, anyway, just that's my thought. That's all.
Those are good thoughts. I think you're reading everybody's mind at the same time. And Howard, I saw your comment, and I'm wondering if Jess or Lynn can address this. I know you guys use BaseCamp, and we have it set up for kind of different functionality. Would this be an appropriate use of that, or would we want to house it outside? Can you throw your thoughts on that?
I'll jump in. We do use BaseCamp for a lot of stuff. Some people hate it. And we've found it useful, but we are happy to resource and provide a platform for whatever works for you guys. if it's a, you know, a BaseCamp site or something different, and just kind of, just like the coffee hours, be the vehicle to do some of the logistical setup and whatnot, so you guys can communicate, and, you know, we can jump in if that's useful. So we're here to hear what would be of value to you guys and help make that happen. As to Margaret's question about, yeah, maybe on the website, links to different town committees and what they're doing, some way of keeping that up to date on a communications platform. We are about to hire a communications manager, like issuing an offer letter today. So we know that a lot of what this person will do will be listening to you guys about what you need. And we have a long list of things we've already heard. And this kind of communications platform is certainly one of those. So yeah, we're here to help, and we'll have someone new to help figure it out and, you know, facilitate the communication in whatever way is useful.
That's exciting. So that sounds like very much like TBD once they come on, kind of what it will look like. Because I think one of the biggest things is the hosting, right? And so sometimes it's clunky for one of the towns to host a platform that everybody uses. So it makes sense to me, which I have that as number 7, that Sustainable CT has housed all of these things, whether it's solid waste, you know, the CCSMM, or the housing equity, or now this, if we have like whatever we call this, sustainability leadership discussion, it makes sense that it would be housed there. And under, I don't know if it's Dropbox or a BaseCamp or whatever it's going to be, but yeah, add it to their list of things that that we'd love to talk to them about. But this may be a very good group to discuss that, you know, and roll that information up to whoever that person is.
So I'm sure some of you on this call are aware, but in the energy world, at least, there's a group called CT Energy Network, which is a Google group, but it's energy people. Some of them are staff, most of them are commission members throughout the state from different towns. And it's a very active listserv. People can pose questions, what you're working on, regulatory things, letters of support for legislation. It's a very active listserv, sometimes almost too much when you're trying to work. But in that realm, just recently, one of the topics was how could they help facilitate the sharing of information between towns' energy managers. So they obviously are focused more specifically on energy, not as broadly on sustainability, but a lot of those people do branch out into the broader initiatives. But just in case everybody on this call wasn't aware of that group, that is a statewide multi-town group that is very active.
Great, thank you.
CJ, you're going nuts in the chat.
I know, I'm loving it.
Speak up.
Where's CJ?
No, I don't want to get in the way of everybody's chatting. I just wanted to ask, put the resources in. The Connecticut Recyclers Coalition, first off, is for a great resource for anybody who is interested in waste management, composting, et cetera, et cetera. We have a past president here, Kim O'Rourke, our current president, Pam Roach, here. And so these are people who've been in this for decades. And so we want to talk trash with you. So we hope that you will join the Kinetic Recyclers Coalition. I'm also the treasurer. So of course I'm pitching out everybody to join us. But I really think that BaseCamp or some other tool would allow Sustainable CT to be sort of a forum for discussions. I think APWA certainly can zero in on public works specific things, but just given the people that are on this call, there's so many people who are not necessarily public works employees. They could be commission members, they could be educators, they could be interested citizens. And the little bit that we've used BaseCamp, it gives me the idea that Sustainable CT could certainly host the BaseCamp, but it doesn't mean they have to be in there day by day and managing the pins and needles. It's I post, I don't post. I mean, if somebody posts something horrible, you take it down. But it's generally saying, hey, here's a project, or who's doing projects on recycling education? And you put it out there, and if somebody wants to respond, they can respond, or they can just lurk and watch what everybody else is doing. And it's a great way to share information. I would think. I really haven't used BaseCamp in that way. Do people have experience and feel that BaseCamp would be good in that way, or are there better tools?
I think it's very user-friendly, whether, like you said, whether you want to lurk or whether you want to be an active poster. There's a million different ways to categorize things. We could have one that's dedicated to sustainability within Connecticut, and then all the subfolders for all the different towns. It could go regional, it could go project by project. I mean, there's so many different ways to like slice it and dice it and organize it. I see that it would be beneficial. There could be an energy section that we could, talk to the CT Energy Network folks about that, and solid waste. I mean, it's kind of it's totally customizable.
Yeah, I like it too, because there's like a listserv component, there's like a campfire, which is more of a chat component, there's a calendar component, there's a document upload component. So yeah, once someone's invited in, and anyone can invite anyone, it's a pretty open forum. So it's a great way to share.
Yeah, it just takes some upkeep, which can be a little, if there's no one like dedicated to it. But if there's going to be this communication person, I don't know what their full scope is, but maybe that fits within it. If it doesn't, maybe we divvy it up between us. I don't know, but I think this is something that we would all find beneficial.
Yeah, we'd be happy to start it. We don't need to even wait for the person to come on board, and then kind of see how it shapes up. People can, we're happy to kind of do the maintenance and whatever is useful.
Now with my experience with BaseCamp, there are different groups. I know Pam has set it up in Scrog. There's a fleet managers working group. There's a public works working group. Would it make sense to divide it up by topics, so it's easier to gun down on all of the different areas going on?
Jess, you're our expert base camper. You want to chime in?
That's a great question, and I think that we could. We might want to start big. So full disclosure, for a very long time when you all joined, I just added you secretly to a BaseCamp page so that one day when the moment was right, we could figure out how we wanted to collaborate together. However, before we had decided the moment was right, somebody figured out how to post on BaseCamp, and it started a chain reaction of people saying, what the heck is this? Why am I getting so many emails? So I think the thing to do would be to have the BaseCamp page be an opt-in list. So if you want to be a part of these conversations, these ongoing conversations, join it. So then we get the people who are okay with getting their email inboxes potentially flooded if they're not sure how to change their settings. But it's something that people want, and it's a tool that you're saying, yes, sign me up for. And add people too. So if you are working, Courtney, with Catherine, and Catherine's not on the BaseCamp page yet, but you want to invite her, go for it. So maybe that's the thing to do. And if we start with an opt-in, we might just want to start with one group and maybe have some different folders just so that we have critical mass. And then if it kind of balloons and we kind of have 50 or 60 people thinking about with that group, do we want to do some separate BaseCamp project pages, and we could easily move people and add people around. So that could be a way to go to make sure we have people together, because BaseCamp pages are great and we actually use them all the time. And the pages that are the most effective are the ones where people are posting and chatting and sharing documents. They're alive. And if people aren't feeding them content, they become very stale very quickly, but they're such a useful tool.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could see this chat that we have here. There's so many resources in this chat. I could see that being its own conversation.
Yeah, it could be its own message.
Yeah, it can also be a really efficient way for us to communication between sustainable CT and towns. So Jess and others are always fielding calls of like, how about you develop an action on this? Or can you get points if you do this? Kind of all certification related or resource related. And we answer them one by one. But if that was in like a chat in BaseCamp and everyone saw, oh my gosh, the community match fund, it now has targeted money for composting projects, which we do. And that could help fund organics collection at your leaf composting site at your transfer station or something. You know, that's a cool way to get it out and have a little dialogue going on.
That's a good point. It kind of allows you guys to keep the finger on the pulse of what we're talking about, what our challenges are, what the issues are. Yeah,
It would
that's
be
really
great.
good
So we
discussion.
can
Awesome.
think about how to do an opt-in. Maybe we can have some Google form sign up. So stay tuned to some upcoming newsletter, I think. We'll try to get that out and get people signed up.
Yeah, we'll also do a direct communication to all you guys from the registration for this, so that you just see it directly.
Nice. The one area that we kind of skipped over that I is the collaboration part, and this was where Howard and I were talking about. It's very multifaceted, and one, it's so interesting to see things in person, and two, as we're starting to get back to normalcy with vaccinations and herd immunity and blah blah blah, I think we could start planning 6-9 months down the road to be kind of back to normal, in quotes. But thinking about getting back together and what does that look like, and are people comfortable with small group gatherings to look at bioswales, or check out Kim's composting in Middletown, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these different things that we can do beyond Zoom now. So I'm really curious to know, and I'm happy to follow up, like maybe we could do like a Survey Monkey or something, but just to start gearing that way. I just, Howard had invited me to New Haven to see those bioswales, and that just allows, one, to see the project, but two, for further communication and collaboration. We'll definitely keep Zooms, but I think for those people that are comfortable, it'll be advantageous to branch out and have multi-platform functionality for this. So we don't have to dwell on that, but I wanted to touch on it and do a follow-up. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely about convenience. I mean, can you imagine how long it would take to get all of us in one room together? Yeah, no, I hear you. So there's a time and a place. I think these meetings are so valuable because we can jump off one meeting and jump into this one and be in a statewide collaborative group. But I do think there's benefit to all kinds of meetings. So just wanted to touch on that because that was one thing that Howard and I had talked about.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things is, we have some of the larger cities here represented as well. Waterbury, Norwalk, there's we invited New Haven, but there's in Manchester, obviously, there's places all over the state where we can gather, where everybody doesn't have to go down to Stamford to look at something, but you can see examples throughout the state. And we work really closely with Middletown, and if something's going on, we're typically asking them how they're handling it, and we share a lot of resources and ideas, and it'd be great to just branch out and be able to see all the cool stuff that's happening in other places.
Yeah. And fun. I mean, something we haven't done in a year. So it's just kind of fun to do this, especially with like-minded people. So, eventually, I don't know, we could get to the point where we could host conferences or just regional get-togethers or whatever. But I'm interested in just gauging the temperature on that within the group, kind of forecasting 6, 9, 12 months down the road. I just want to make sure we hit on everything with this. The internship, Jess, this kind of goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, and Lynn, I think you mentioned it to me. So this kind of came about because Howard has an awesome internship program, and then when this whole coffee hour was being kicked around, I think it was Lynn that brought up that there's the fellows that come on, and if interns were interested, they could take the same training that the fellows take that kind of get them up to speed. So it was just like one of those knowledge opportunities that I wanted to make sure that we shared with this group. And Jess, maybe you could add a bit more to that, or what that encompasses, or Lynn, or whatever.
Yeah, so we have the fellows on each summer, and before they begin, which is usually the first week of June, we have a training. Obviously it was via Zoom last year, and we'll do the same this year. And that's where we cover all the basics about how to be a fellow, which is how to work with towns. So there's probably lots of overlap with regard to how your interns might be helping your town. Some things won't relate. So when we're talking about how to get paid as a fellow, they can sort of, space out, check their emails, go on Facebook, whatever. But there could be opportunities for them to learn some of the basics of the program. And if we knew that we were having external partners coming, perhaps we could set up one day that was really all about sustainable CT, and then another day that was more, you know, you're a fellow, these are the expectations for you, where it was more drilled down to their position. We've also done opportunities to try to build a fellow cohort. So we'd have to think through critically about bringing on additional individuals. If we have a huge group of like 40 interns, that sort of changes the dynamic a bit. And we're trying to create a team of the fellows. So we'd be interested in exploring what that looks like, what the numbers are, what the backgrounds are. So we're working with grad and undergraduate students. So the, you know, how are we messaging to the audience? What are they hoping to learn and get out of the experience? But we'd be eager to work with any of you who have interns coming on board to see if it makes sense to bring them into some of this fellowship work and the cohort that we're creating, or if there's something a little bit different that we can tweak for them based on their age, experience, and or what they'll be working on specifically within your town. But it's a really exciting opportunity to almost do what we're doing here, but with young people. So creating a separate network of youth in Connecticut and how they're creating a state that they want to live in.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'd just add that we have done this in the past. We've like Milford and others who've had summer interns, they have kind of joined into aspects of the fellows cohort. And one of the main communication vehicles is BaseCamp. And so town, you know, fellows are posting questions about a town or a cog, you know, how it works, or about a sustainable CT action or a resource. And all of them can benefit from, you know, chiming in and following the answers and the questions and whatnot. So I think like the BaseCamp, certainly we could open up to interns in towns, and yeah, like if it's a few, definitely we'll fold them in. If it's like another 40, then, you know, maybe we kind of customize another way to weave them into some of the fellow stuff so that it's a big learning group.
Great, thanks. Margaret has her hand raised. You're on mute. There you go.
I'm here. So two things. First of all, when you said about interns coming on board, can you tell me what that is and what it looks like? And because that's the first I've heard that phrase. Are these different committees and towns doing this, or what exactly do you mean by interns coming on board?
That's a great question, Margaret. So there's a couple of different things that we're talking about, and we sort of just smushed them all together. So Sustainable CT has fellows that are out at all of the various cogs each summer, and you're shaking your head. So you might have met Noah. He was your fellow last summer, and we'll have another awesome fellow at Northwest Hills Cog this coming summer to provide direct support to the towns in the region. Also, other towns have hired college or high school students over the summer months to help out with their sustainable CT work. We've had lots of different towns do that, and if they know about the fellowship, sometimes they say, hey, we're going to have an intern come on board this summer, and we bring them into the fold for as much as they'd like to be brought in. And it could be through the basic training that we run, or different sort of field trip opportunities, or just like Lynn mentioned, adding them to our base camp so they're benefiting from seeing the questions and answers and kind of just conversation that we're having as a group about the ongoing work with towns, since a lot of it all relates. So we all working on the same actions.
Okay. So then a second point that is just percolating in my mind as you guys were talking about the fellowship, the fellows, etc., and what you can do with interns. This is like a biggie, and it's a future thing, but I'm an educator, and you mentioned the youth of Connecticut, so I'm thinking the high school students, that's your next group maybe. Wouldn't it be amazing? And the idea of taking the youth of Connecticut and involving them in making their state a better place, right? What about some kind of a hands-on, authentic learning experience offered to the public high schools almost as a course where the kids could get credit for it? I mean, I'm just my education mind just started to buzz. So I throw that out there. So, you know, yeah.
That's cool. And Howard, you work with a group of high school interns, right? Like you have 10 or 15 interns?
Yeah, so Paul Dixon is the director of planning in Meriden, and Paul and I have been on a year-long crusade to create a sustainable internship program. Partially, we had a major retirement a couple of years ago, and one of the big concerns is we weren't getting qualified candidates from Meriden to apply for really good jobs in Meriden. And it really started to hit home, and we realized we had to reach out at the high school level and try and engage. You know, the joke is we want the smart ones to stay. So we're trying to engage the smart ones in Meriden government and in Meriden projects. And we had 7 students last year kind of create a program, and we really wanted them to create the entire organizational structure. I'll actually I just posted the link to the page, but after a lot of working with the Board of Education and the finance department and everybody, we got 18 students on board. They all get stipends because of equity. We wanted to make sure that their job, a volunteer opportunity wasn't geared towards somebody that didn't have that needed to get a job. So there's a stipend there. We have an executive committee essentially modeled after our council. And then we have a bunch of committees modeled after our departments. And the goal is that the students are going to manage this. It's going to exist completely separate from, you know, city government. That way it can continue long after we're gone. We explained to them that there's going to be conflict. Welcome to the real world. Paul and I have been very upfront. You know, you're going to go through an interview process. You're going to go through trying to deal with other people. We gave them conflict resolution classes. They have to take sexual harassment classes. You know, they're going to figure it out. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yep. So Howard, hi everyone, Paul Dixon. Howard kind of hit the major components there. And actually the internship program, it happened to be while we were going through the certification process for Sustainable CT that we focused the equity lens on it. And really, because originally we were just like, we need to create an internship program. And then it's actually no, we need to figure out how we can create an internship program for the interns, for them to create a program that serves them. So that really was our lens. It is possibly the most difficult way to create a program that we've ever done. But it's the best way, I think, to create a program where you actually have the people who are in the program creating it for themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, we've brought them through, we've talked to them, and actually the way it's going to work and how it interfaces with the city government is, since, you know, and they actually kind of came up with this, since they are kind of focused more along the lines of how we're structured. I will be a mentor, Howard will be a mentor, our communications director, our finance, those who are working on the grants aspect will have mentors in our finance department. And it's really the city working with these high school students and exposing them to everything that we do in government and them to create their own projects and us to help them along. So it's actually really, really good project and a program that Howard actually fought like crazy for the stipends too, and we've been working on it. We hope to get them higher, but we could only get, getting a program initially off the ground with about 25K of funding is a good start, but it ultimately will need more, especially when you have 18 kids.
And there's still a chance it could fail spectacularly.
Oh yeah, there always is.
But we're gonna give it the old college try. You know, if nothing else, we get recycling education out of it. You know, it's going to pay for itself just in the recycling aspect. If we can convert, a small number of tons of solid waste to recyclables, or get it out of the waste stream entirely, or have it converted to e-waste, the program pays for itself. And I think, just having it work and forcing it along for at least 3 or 4 years until it gets enough legs to be its own entity, I think is the big goal here.
This is great. This is so good. Thank you guys for telling me some more about that.
I'll also have, and it has the one other possible advantage, which is in our own little, at least my self-interest of, you can say no to me, but please say no to these 18 high school students who are trying to do something for their community. You can say no to me till they're blue in the face. That's fine, but say no to them. Have fun.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in and say we would love to see more community match fund projects focused and driven and led by high school students. And we've always envisioned that if a town wanted to start a program like that with high school interns or college interns, it could be a great crowdfunding project where we'll match the dollars. So, you know, if you don't have it in your budget, make it work.
Cool. Thanks.
I want to be respectful of the time. It is 4 o'clock. We did it. We filled an hour just chit chatting about sustainability, and I feel like we could easily go another hour. The last thing I would, you know, I think that we're all in agreement that we would like something like this. And I had added the Jersey example of the sustainability hubs that they have. I don't know. I don't. We may be able to manage it with our whole group for now, because I think there's so much value in that. But just, you know, this seems obvious that the rest of the group feels that way. But just wanted to say that I would love to do this again and have more topics and more speakers and hear more from you guys. I just see more benefit than anything. So that's all I have. Howard, do you want to add anything? I'll just want to thank Lynn and Jess for hosting us and allowing us to blather on and on for an hour. It was real fun.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be great if, you know, I know Jim Travers and I were talking about parklets. It'd be great if we can maybe take a session in one of these and kind of sabotage it and just talk about parklets and outdoor dining in spaces, maybe one of the ones in the near future.
Yeah, I
We
think that's
can
a good
do
idea.
it. Yeah, we'll get in touch with you to kind of help tee up the top, you know, the title for more of the specifics on that Zoom. And yeah, we recorded this, so we'll send all you guys an invitation to BaseCamp, a recording, and I'm going to save the chat before we end this, so that
You read my mind. I was like, save that chat.
yeah. Thanks everyone. Let us know what else is helpful. This is great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney and Howard.
Howard, good seeing you.
You too.